Hi, I'm Justin Smith, and you're on the record with the News Reporter. Our very first guest is Columbus County Manager Eddie Madden. Eddie, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. You started as county manager in early 2021. We know a lot has changed in the world, a lot's changed in Columbus County in 4 years. What are some of the milestones as you look back on your time so far as county manager?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you to talk about the progress the county has made over the past 4 years. I started March 29th, 2021, and as you indicated, a lot has changed since then. I think first and foremost, you have to recognize that the county acquired the BB&T properties downtown, both around the courthouse as well as the corporate offices on Columbus Street, and that's a signature property in downtown Whiteville that we were fortunate to acquire, and we were able to move the majority of our county offices to those locations to centralize the day-to-day operations of county government. So that's obviously that rises to the top, but then of course you've got the historic courthouse that's been renovated. Millions of dollars worth of infrastructure put in the ground for water and broadband and other infrastructure needs across the county. And then of course we've enhanced our fire and rescue program and put in QRVs in certain areas of the county. So a lot of improvements. I could go on, but those are some of the highlights.
Right, and just to point this out, when you say QRVs, we're talking about quick response vehicles. It's a paramedic that supports the local EMS department.
That's right. We went through a very comprehensive study to determine where areas were that were unserved or underserved. And it revealed to us that we have gaps in the county where departments were outside the 10-minute response window. And the recommendation was for us to place quick response vehicles with paid paramedic staff in those areas to where we could respond more quickly when we're called upon.
So I want to, there's so many things we could talk about because county government is involved in so many aspects of life, from social services, health department, parks and rec. But I'd like to talk about budget and finance because I think people have probably heard a lot about that. We at the News Reporter have done a lot of reporting, in part because there have been 3 state-mandated audits that have come out in the span of about a year, right? And so let's start kind of broad. What is the current state of county government's finances? How would you high-level characterize that?
Well, I would say county government is strong. Financially, we're in a good position. We verified our cash and investment balances regularly, but I pulled the report as of January 31st of this year. And in total, we have on hand with cash and investments about $56 million. As compared to 2020, when I started in this role, of just over $45 million. So we've grown our cash and investments by a little over $10 million in that period of time. However, our undesignated, unassigned fund balance has gone down. So out of that $56 million that we have on hand, almost $51 million of that is restricted for some purpose or use. It's either been restricted by state statute as mandated by the local government commission, or is for some designated purpose like a capital project. It's sales tax revenue that has dedicated uses, etc. So that undesignated fund balance has come down as a result of us approving budget amendments that have come up over the past 4 years that were in some cases out of our control. They had to be paid. And it has resulted in that lower unassigned fund balance than we would prefer. Our total fund balance is doing great. The audit report from 23 indicated that compared to counties of similar size, and geographic region, our benchmarks were higher than other similar counties. So we've been doing good in total cash and investments. We've grown that. Our total fund balance is exceeding the benchmarks compared to other counties. It's the unassigned portion that we need to work on to try to rebuild over time.
And so the State Local Government Commission is essentially a regulatory agency for local governments in North Carolina.
That's correct.
And so after this most recent audit that showed the unrestricted fund balance lower than their threshold, the county essentially had to answer for that, right? And come up with a plan for how you're going to build that fund balance back up.
That's right. And so in corresponding with our auditor and with the local government representative that we interact with, their solution to that for us is to simply reduce expenditures. It's not about necessarily growing the revenue, it's about reducing expenditures, because the calculation that they use to determine what our fund balance percentage is solely based on expenditures. So until we can reduce expenditures, it's going to be difficult to see that percentage increase. There is one caveat to that, however. We have a number of projects that have been on the books for a number of years that are their obligations, ones that we will not undertake this fiscal year and may not even in the next fiscal year, that we plan to move from restricted to unassigned so that it increases that unassigned fund balance, which should bump us up where we need to be.
So let's talk about this budget year. And just to clarify for people, so the budget year for local government goes July 1st of a given year through June 30th
Correct.
of the next year.
Yes.
So we're sort of in the final stretch here, or approaching the final stretch of this budget year. And county government has taken some steps to try to reduce expenses for this year.
That's correct.
In February, the county froze about 35 positions. Can you talk about that? How were those positions determined, and are citizens seeing a reduction in services or quality of services because of those positions being frozen?
I thank you for that question. So we work with our department directors as well as our elected officials, sheriff and others, to determine which positions were vacant at the time that was being considered. And for those positions that were not filled, had not been advertised, we simply froze those positions for the time being. We always budget for turnover, but in order to ensure that we could meet our marks, we took the next step and froze those positions to where they could not be filled. We've since had turnover, and we've been able to fill those positions that were not frozen back in January. But by and large, our operations really haven't changed that much. Some of our folks have had to take on more responsibility, but we think this is just a temporary bump in the road.
Beyond the freezing of positions, what is the county doing to try to cut expenses?
We've asked all of our departments to review their budgets and provide us recommendations on where they could reduce their overall budgets between now and June 30th. Some of them have voluntarily postponed capital projects or capital purchases that were not critical for right now, that we would obviously have to pick up at some point in the future. That has worked. I think in total, between the freezing of positions and the reductions in the total budget, we've reduced our net loss by about $2 million already. So we've made good progress. Right now we're focusing on revenues. We have a number of revenue line items that are not meeting budget, and we're trying to make sure that we collect what we have budgeted for, and that should also offset any losses that we would have.
So in terms of revenue, property tax revenue, that makes up the majority of county's revenue,
Around
right?
$30 million
Yeah.
annually.
But you also have utility revenues, right, that people pay in for water, sales tax revenues, right? So it's a mix
That's
that you're
correct.
looking at.
That's right, yes, sir. You know, we have multiple revenue sources, but the main one is property tax. And it's consistently growing, but not at a great rate, because up to this point, the county has maintained a fairly flat population. What we do know is that in coming years, the population of this county is going to grow, and it already is growing. And so we anticipate those revenues, property tax revenues, to likewise increase.
But as those property tax revenues increase because of, let's say, new housing developments down in Pireway, the county's also going to be called on to provide additional services,
Correct.
right? In terms of law enforcement, EMS, Parks and Rec, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you think that's going to shake out in the long term, or is it yet to be known?
Well, I think at this point it's unknown. Now, there's a rule of thumb in my line of work, and that is that residential growth doesn't necessarily increase the bottom line. It's usually, you know, from the investments you make in water and sewer and public safety and schools, et cetera, that the income that you would derive from property tax typically offsets the costs. What we hope to see going forward is all the residential growth leading to commercial and industrial development, and that's where we'll see an increase in our bottom line.
Can you talk about the role of infrastructure in that type of growth, and specifically sewer?
Yes.
Because right now, Columbus County government operates several water districts, so people can buy water from Columbus County government. However, county government is not in the sewer business.
That is correct.
Right?
That is right.
So to what extent is that going to be important moving forward, the potential for Columbus County to get into sewer?
Well, I don't know that we're necessarily looking to get into the sewer business, but I would say that many years ago, someone had the foresight to work out interlocal agreements with City of Wyville, with Horry County, with Brunswick County, and we have the capability of being able to serve certain areas of our county by those utilities that relieves us of that burden. The growth that you're seeing now in the Dothan community and even on the eastern end, the areas served by the City of Wyville, is where you're seeing the uptick in interest in residential growth.
Okay, so we've been talking the past couple minutes about how growth years from now could affect county government's budget. But coming back to the here and now, you know, we're talking about trying to get through the end of this budget year.
Yes.
And then looking ahead to the next budget year. Last year in the summer, county had to dip into its fund balance about $5 million.
That's correct.
To balance the budget that ended June 30th of last year. Can you speak to what factors contributed to that, and how is county government going to make sure you don't have to do that again this year?
Well, a minute ago you referred to the audits and the sequence of audits that occurred in one calendar year. Our finance staff completed 3 audits in 1 year. Those audits went back to 2021, but even some of the reporting that was derived went back to 2008, many years back, to reconcile and make sure we knew exactly where we were financially and what our net position was. Those 3 audits revealed some discrepancies, I guess you could say, in property tax valuation and estimation of revenues. And so when those audits came out, we had to address that immediately, and we throttled back our projections for property tax revenues, and then consequently the expenditures side of that as well, to make sure we end the year strong. When that budget amendment was approved in 2024, we didn't have that information. All we knew was that we had an overstatement that had to be corrected. We have since made those adjustments, and we're more confident that we will collect what we have now budgeted.
So would you say it's a safe, accurate characterization to say that essentially county administration didn't have as clear of a roadmap or analytics as you would have wanted because you didn't have those audits?
Those audits were eye-opening to us. Now we have confidence in our net position. Obviously, we have a strong financial position, $56 million in cash and assets, but we also know that our net unassigned fund balance is not as strong as what had been previously reported. So we feel good about where we are now, and we will build from there. In the meantime, operating as conservatively as we can and only filling positions that are essential as we go forward until we start to see an increase in property tax revenues.
So right now, y'all are in the process of coming up with a budget for next budget year that starts July 1st.
Yes, sir.
What can people expect? I know it's still too early to say with any certainty, but you mentioned property tax revenue. Columbus County Commissioners historically have been very hesitant to increase property tax revenue. It's been years. Do you think there's any appetite for that this year, or are you planning to write a budget that keeps the tax rate in place, steady?
My intentions are not to propose a tax increase. Now, and I don't think the board has the appetite to increase property taxes either. What they have said to me very clearly is live within your means. You budget for what you think you will collect, what you have confidence that you will collect. Don't budget based on a growth factor, which was applied for the past 2 budget years. Budget what you feel confident that you will receive, and that's what we plan to do.
So I do want to give you an opportunity here at the end to talk about anything that we've missed, either related to budget and finance or just other aspects of county government that you want the public to know about.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share with you today some information. I think it's important for everyone to know that Columbus County is a great place to live, work, and play, and that there's so much potential here, both from residential growth to recreational opportunities, great things happening in our municipalities, commercial and industrial development that is occurring. We've announced recently about Provalis. You've also heard about the fence company coming to Chadbourn. Those 2 companies together combined will create a little over 350 jobs here in the county. It's been many years since the county has seen that type of industrial job creation, and we're very proud of that. Our team with the economic development, all of our partners are working very, very closely to make sure that those projects come to fruition, and I'm proud of them. We have a great staff, a great administration and departments doing good work every day, and I couldn't be more proud of them as well. And it's been my pleasure to serve as county manager here for the last 4 years, and I hope to be here for some time to come.
Columbus County Manager Eddie Madden, thank you so much for being here, for being our first guest on this program. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you back here soon for the next episode of On the Record.